Hot fresh knowledge for your brain who wants to learn about a really weird bird. This is an adult Watson. They're quite beautiful, they're native to South America, neither of those is the interesting thing about them. These are baby Watsons, and oh my goodness, why does the bird have hands? I'm so glad you asked. The bird has hands because when something threatens them in the nest before they're old enough to fly, these babies yeet themselves out of the nest and use those functional grasping claws to climb back in. And the neurology of this is super interesting. Birds are neurologically programmed to move their wings in sync. It's the flapping motion, it's how they fly. But Watson babies apparently are neurologically different because they can move their arms independently and crawl hand over hand as they climb back to the nest. The bones in their hands look a lot like Archaeopteryx bones, and so scientists think that this might have been one of the behaviors that Archaeopteryx utilized in its forest home. They can also use their chins as auxiliary claws, which is just wild.
Here's a design story of how the popular font Calibri was used in court to catch a CEO in a lie. The company Look Communications sued its own CEO for shady business practices, and in 2017 he was ordered to pay $5.6 million to creditors. So the CEO filed for bankruptcy and presented the court with these documents stating that his properties were held in a trust, which basically means that legally they couldn't be taken away from him. Now these documents were signed in 1995 and 2004, but upon closer inspection, it was noticed that the documents were typed in the fonts Calibri and Cambria, which weren't publicly released until Windows Vista in 2007. This is not the first time Calibri has been used to catch people in a lie. In 2016, the daughter-in-law of the former Pakistan Prime Minister published these documents also written in Calibri, claiming she created a trust a year before the font was created. In 2012, the Turkish government wrongfully charged 300 people using documents written in Calibri but dated in 2003.
This is a robotic third thumb that can be controlled wirelessly by the user's big toes. In just a few minutes, people can learn to grasp objects, and after a few days, it starts to feel just like it's a part of their body, and it can be used in amazing ways that are completely different to how humans normally use their hands. This was looking at what it's like to have extra body parts, so which extra body parts do you think would be really good to have?
When it comes to fire, the most common color is probably orange or red, and this is usually from burning something like wood. What I've always found interesting, though, was how many other colors are possible, and it can really depend on what's burning. For example, if I add a solution of boric acid and methanol and light it on fire, I get a really nice green color. I can also throw some aluminum into an acidic copper solution and get a blue flame. What I think is even cooler, though, is what happens when I burn nitromethane. It actually doesn't burn on its own, and I have to give it a boost with some methanol. Now when I try it, I get a flame that has almost no color. There is a slight hint of yellow, but besides that, it almost looks like it's in black and white. In my opinion, it kind of looks fake, and I think this is better than anything with color.
These are three of the strangest illusions. This first one is called Slow Dance. It's a piece of art that simulates slow motion. It uses a light here that acts as a strobe, as well as this machine which vibrates the feathers. Now you can replace the feathers with anything you like, say a leaf or a flower, and they'll essentially do the same thing. There are different speeds. So here's ultra slow-mo, here's a bit faster, and this is the best one. I could stare at this for hours. This one is a version of 3D anamorphic art. The illusion is really incredible on camera, but even crazier in person. And you can actually see the moment the illusion breaks. And finally, another example of an anamorphic piece of art. It really does look like Shakespeare's head is following everywhere I go. The second you come over here, the illusion breaks. Like this video and subscribe if you want to see more cool stuff.
Maps that will change the way you see the world. This map shows GPS tracking of multiple wolf packs around a national park. It really shows how often wolves just avoid each other's territories. This map shows 20 different eagles that were tracked over a 1-year period. Notice how they constantly avoid water. This is a map of occupied bald eagle nests in Wisconsin in 1974 and 2019. This is how big Japan is compared to the east coast of the United States of America. 50% of all Canadians live south of that red line. These two areas of Africa have roughly the same amount of people. Each one of these sections contains 10% of the world population. These maps show the passenger railway networks as of 2020 in each of these countries. This is the longest possible way to travel by train in the entire world. Follow for more.
Are we really just gonna ignore the fact that killer whales give sharks PTSD? Welcome to Animal Logic, let's talk about it. Orcas are the most disrespectful animal on the planet, and that's exactly what happens when no one can check you. Other than humans, the only thing that can take on an orca and win is a bigger orca. Because they're the top of the food chain, orcas bully the entire underwater census, and they legitimately traumatize great white sharks. If Jaws happens to encounter an orca near their hunting grounds, they'll abandon the area for up to a year. And for good reason. Orcas actually figured out that if they flip over sharks, they can induce tonic immobility, paralyzing the shark while the Bundy dolphins take its liver, heart, testes, and probably its life too. Killer whales have been seen punting seals up to 80 feet in the air just like a field goal. Researchers believe they do this to either paralyze the seal or loosen its skin. But there's always that chance that these psychopaths do this because they find joy in putting a seal in the clouds. They're also intelligent enough to work together to create a wave that's so powerful that it knocks the seal completely off the ice. And just when he thinks he's safe on the beach, Steroid Flipper reminds him it's an orca's world and he just lives in it. And even though they're built like an 8 to 12,000 pound equality symbol, they can launch themselves up to 15 feet in the air. Really bad news if you're a bottlenose in the wrong place. And they slap stingrays. Just cause they can. This swimming sociopath is the most oppressive force in the entire ocean, and even though a wild orca has never caused a human obituary, some have started ramming into sailing boats off the coast of Spain and Portugal, damaging the boats and injuring the crew. Considering orcas are one of the most intelligent creatures on the planet, there was 100% malicious intent. And because this ocean Oreo has a range of almost everywhere, a grocery list of almost everything, and their weaknesses only exist in fiction, the homicidal sea panda is truly a cheat code.
Hi, I need to tell you the best thing ever, and it is that this guy and this crane are functionally married. This is Walnut. She was born into a species recovery program back in the 80s when they didn't realize that humans raising these animals might cause them to imprint on the humans instead of their own species. That's what happened with Walnut. So basically, and this part is kind of sad, Walnut thinks that other members of her species aren't members of her species. They tried introducing Walnut to 2 other male suitors, and though it hasn't been proven, they're pretty sure that she Carol Baskined them. And since white-naped cranes like Walnut are an endangered species, it's really bad if they kill other cranes or if they don't reproduce. The story gets so much better. Walnut was transferred to the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute back in 2004, which is also the same year that Chris started working there. Chris's full name, of course, being Chris Crow. Chris Crow. And Walnut was immediately all about Chris, very excited that he was around. In fact, Walnut initiated a mating dance with Chris, which, hey ma'am, go get your man. Now, since they're trying to save this endangered species, if they won't mate with other members of their species, they'll do artificial insemination, so usually they have to restrain the birds, artificially inseminate them, and then let them raise the babies. But Chris realized that since Walnut was basically approaching him with a mating dance, if he mimicked the dance back, Walnut might think that they're mates. Which means that they could do the formal artificial insemination procedure without having to restrain the bird. And it turns out that worked. Chris and Walnut have 5 children. And all of them have had to be raised by other cranes because they didn't think that Walnut would actually think that the birds were members of her own species and she might kill them. And also, to quote the article, because Chris is not equipped to be a crane dad. And while the eggs are taken and given to other cranes to raise a nest, they actually give her fake eggs to sit on, and Chris takes turns standing over them, which seems to satisfy Walnut's need that he also look after the kids. This article went on to say that Chris has basically accepted the fact that he is married to this crane and will be forever, and they live for about 60 years. This bird's only 36 years old. And Chris is 42, so I guess till death do you part. And I just wanted to say to the universe, thank you so much for this.
This is what doctors use to look inside your booty hole, a proctoscope. It's even got a light to look inside dark holes. First you put some lube on the end so it goes in smooth. Don't worry, it only goes in a few centimeters. We can look for sneaky hemorrhoids and other reasons for pain or bleeding.
I keep a lot of toys in my science classroom because, depending on the unit you're teaching, some of them are remarkably good at helping out, like a Slinky for teaching waves, but none of these can compete with the awesomeness of the Euler's disk. If you're teaching angular momentum or kinetic or potential energy or friction loss, check this guy out. Stay with it till the end, you'll hear the jet engine taking off. I want to thank my friends over at Flynn Scientific for sending this my way. It is incredible. The students are amazed by it. Science!